Rain poured heavily over the Faith Hope ministry. Inside the big hall, hundreds of people squeezed together, waiting for Prophetess Anna to appear. She was known as the voice of God, and many believed she had the power to heal and see the future. The air felt thick with whispers. Some people prayed quietly, while others stared at the empty stage, hoping for a miracle. Suddenly, a door opened, and Anna walked in. She was calm and confident, her long scarf flowing as she climbed the steps to the stage. A loud cry came from the back of the room. "It's true. She healed him," a woman shouted. Everyone turned to see Sarah, a young woman, pulling an old man forward. "This man was blind for years, but now he can see again," Sarah said. The crowd gasped and clapped, some crying with joy. People reached out their hands toward Anna, calling her a savior. But one man in the crowd, John, didn't clap. He frowned as he watched the old man stumble. John thought he had seen this same man walking without help just days ago. John's chest felt heavy. Could Prophetess Anna be lying? He looked around. No one else seemed to notice. They only saw her as a hero. The night after the healing event, John couldn't sleep. His mind raced. He had seen that old man walk just fine before, and now everyone was calling it a miracle. He felt something wasn't right. The next morning, John decided to investigate. He left his small apartment and walked to the Faith Hope ministry. The church was quieter now. The bright lights from last night were gone, and the stage was empty. John stepped inside, looking around. He had heard rumors about Prophetess Anna, about how some believed she used tricks to fool people. But he had never paid attention until now. "Excuse me, sir," a voice called from behind him. It was a man in a black suit. "Are you looking for something?" John turned around. "I'm just looking," he replied. The man nodded and smiled, but there was something strange in his eyes. "Well, be careful. Not everyone who comes here is who they seem to be." John felt uneasy. "What do you mean?" The man lowered his voice. "Prophetess Anna isn't as holy as people think. Some say she's hiding something dark." Before John could ask more, the man walked away. John stood there, confused. Could this be true? Was the woman everyone trusted really hiding something? As he walked out of the church, John's mind spun. He didn't know what to believe anymore. But one thing was clear, he needed to find out more about Prophetess Anna. The next day, John couldn't stop thinking about the man's words. Something dark about Prophetess Anna. What could it mean? He had to know more, but where could he start? He decided to visit the church again. This time, he'd be more careful. He didn't want anyone to notice him, so he stayed outside and watched from a distance. Hours passed. People came in and out of the church, but nothing seemed strange. John was about to leave when he saw someone else. A woman dressed in plain clothes walked towards the church. She looked around as if she was making sure no one was watching. John had never seen her before. He felt a strange pull to follow her, so he did. Quietly, he followed her down a narrow alley behind the church. There, she stopped in front of a door that was hidden from view. She knocked twice. The door opened slowly, and the woman slipped inside. John waited for a moment before moving closer. He couldn't hear anything, but his gut told him something was wrong. Just then, the same man in the black suit from the other day appeared, walking fast towards the alley. John stepped back, not wanting to be seen. The man stopped near the door and knocked. It opened, and he entered too. John's heart raced. What was going on behind that door? He knew he had to get answers. But what if he was getting in too deep? John couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. The hidden door, the woman, and the man in black. What were they doing inside? Why was it so secretive? The next day, he went back to the church. This time, he tried to be more careful. He didn't want to raise any suspicion. He stood at the edge of the street, pretending to check his phone, while his eyes kept going to the alley. After a while, the woman appeared again. She walked down the same path, looking around carefully, as if making sure no one was following her. John didn't wait this time. He moved quickly and followed her from a distance. She didn't notice him. John kept his pace steady, making sure not to lose her. The alley was empty, and it was quiet. When the woman reached the door, she knocked once. John hid behind a nearby dumpster and watched. The door opened. This time, he could see inside, just for a second. It was dark, and there were people gathered around. He couldn't make out any faces. The door quickly closed behind her. John stayed hidden for a few more minutes, thinking about what he had just seen. He knew it wasn't normal. Whatever was going on inside that building, it was definitely not good. John's heart was racing. He had to know more, but he also felt scared. Was it wise to keep digging? He wasn't sure, but his curiosity pushed him forward. John couldn't sleep that night. His mind kept racing with questions about what he had seen. The dark building. The strange people. And the way the woman had looked around before entering. Something was off. The next morning, he sat in his small apartment, staring at the phone in his hand. Should he tell someone? Maybe his friend Mark would know what to do. But what if he was wrong? What if it was all just a coincidence? John picked up the phone and dialed Mark's number. The phone rang a few times before Mark picked up. Hey, man. What's up? Mark's voice was cheerful, but John could hear the busy sounds of the city in the background. I need to talk to you, John said, his voice low. It's important. Sure. What's going on? Mark asked, his tone turning serious. John told Mark everything. The woman, the man in black, and the hidden door. Mark listened carefully, asking a few questions along the way. When John finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. I don't know, man, Mark finally said. That sounds strange. But maybe you should forget about it. You don't want to get involved in something you don't understand. John felt a wave of doubt wash over him. Was he making a mistake? Should he let it go? But then, a part of him refused to drop it. He had to know what was going on. He couldn't just walk away. I can't forget about it, John said, his voice firm. I need to find out what's really happening there. John paced back and forth in his apartment, trying to figure out what to do next. Mark's words kept echoing in his mind, but he couldn't let it go. Something about that building, the woman, and the strange man felt important. After talking to Mark, he knew he couldn't back out now. He had to find out what was happening. But how? He needed a plan. He glanced out the window, thinking. Maybe he could find a way to get inside the building. But it wasn't like he could just walk up to the door and ask to be let in. No, he had to be more careful than that. John decided to go back to the alley again. It was the only place he could think of where he might find a clue. He had to be more observant, more sneaky. Maybe he could find a way in without anyone noticing him. He grabbed his jacket, then stopped. His mind raced with doubts. Was he being foolish? What if he got in over his head? But deep down, he knew that if he didn't try, he would never be able to stop wondering. John left his apartment, determined to find answers. As he walked toward the alley, his heart began to race. Every corner felt like it could hold something he wasn't ready for. But it didn't matter. He was already too far in. When he arrived, he stood still for a moment, scanning the area. The street was quiet, and the shadows were long. It was just like the last time, but this time, John was ready. He had to uncover the truth. John stood at the entrance to the alley, looking around. The street light stretched shadows across the darkened pavement, making the place feel colder than it should. He felt a shiver down his back but ignored it. He had to find out what was going on. Taking a deep breath, he walked towards the building. His footsteps echoed through the empty street. Everything seemed quiet, too quiet. He moved closer to the door where he had seen the woman the night before. This time, he wasn't just watching from the outside, he was here to learn the truth. John walked around the side of the building, where he noticed something he hadn't before, a small door hidden behind a dumpster. It wasn't the main entrance, but it was still a door. It looked old and forgotten, like no one had used it in years. Was this the secret entrance? He hesitated, wondering what he might be walking into. But he couldn't back out now. He reached for the door handle, and to his surprise, it wasn't locked. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow, dark hallway. John's heart raced as he stepped inside. The air smelled musty, and the walls seemed to close in around him. The dim light made it hard to see, but John moved forward cautiously. The hallway felt endless, and the silence was deafening. Every step he took made the space feel even more eerie. Suddenly, he heard a noise behind him. He froze. Was someone following him? The hair on the back of his neck stood up as he turned slowly. John couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen the night before. The strange woman, the mysterious building, and the feeling that something wasn't right. He couldn't let it go. His mind kept asking the same question: what was the truth behind Prophetess Anna's miracle? He decided he had to find out. He couldn't wait any longer. John knew he had to return to the building and uncover the secrets that were hidden there. He felt nervous, but also determined. This wasn't just about curiosity anymore, it was about finding answers. Walking through the quiet streets, John reached the building. It looked the same as before, dark and silent. But today, the air felt heavier. He hesitated but forced himself to step inside. There was a strange energy in the air, just like last time. John walked carefully down the hallway. The sound of his footsteps echoed in the silence. He reached a wooden door, covered with odd symbols. They looked familiar, but he couldn't place where he'd seen them before. Taking a deep breath, he turned the doorknob. Inside, Prophetess Anna was sitting at a desk. She didn't seem surprised to see him. Her eyes met his with a calm, almost knowing look. "John," she said softly. "You've been asking questions." John didn't know what to say. "What's going on? What's the truth?" Anna stood up slowly. "I've been waiting for you. You've seen things. The miracles, the changes, it's all part of something much bigger than you know." John's heart raced. John stood there, feeling uneasy. Anna's smile wasn't kind anymore. There was something cold in her eyes now. "John," she said softly, "there's something you need to know." He felt nervous. "What do you mean?" Anna's smile vanished. Her voice turned darker. "You think my miracles come from God, right? That I'm chosen for something special. But that's not true." John's heart raced. "Then what's the truth?" "I made a deal," she said, her eyes cold. "A deal with dark forces, things you can't even imagine. My powers don't come from God. They come from evil things that feed on others." John couldn't believe it. You made a deal with demons." Anna shook her head. "Not demons. But close enough. Every time I heal someone, every miracle I do, I'm taking from them. I drain their life, their energy. They think I'm helping them, but I'm feeding off them. The more people I help, the more power I get. And the more control I have." John stepped back, stunned. "How many people? How many have you hurt?" "Too many," she said, with a twisted smile. "They come to me for help, and they leave empty. Some disappear, some follow me, trapped forever." John felt sick. The woman he thought was good was a monster. A liar. A manipulator. And now, knowing the truth, he was caught in her game. Anna moved closer. "You know the truth now, John. You can help me, or you can be my next victim." If you like this story, get ready for more twists and secrets in part 2. Stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.